All right, good afternoon, all you huddle up coaches, people that are out in the stands, whether that's in Las Vegas or Hammond, Indiana, or Arkansas, which is where we're at. We're in the center of Mother's Land here at Fountain Lake High School. Beautiful facility to tape the second in a series of interviews with some of the coaches that have made me the coach that I am today. I'd first like to introduce both of them. Both of them coach for me on the my far left, which would be probably to your right, is my youngest brother Steve Ridgely, who started in 1988 with me. Was a defensive backs coach. He was actually a volunteer for the first 2 years and then was a paid coach. And in the middle, the elder spokesman of the Ridgely family now, my oldest brother Dale, who came, I want to say, at about 1994. Yeah. 1994, and I'd say he was our special teams coordinator. He was the man in charge of all the treatments. He kept our guys on the field despite what injuries they might think that they might have had. He was able to take care of them. So not only were they both my brothers and longtime coaches with me also. So first I'd like to introduce both of them. Steve, anything you want to say to start with?
No, just happy to be here.
Dale?
That is exciting, especially being here in Arkansas. We're all here visiting my mom. I live here with her, but they've come in to visit, and it's always a good day when you can talk football.
Absolutely. And the first thing, this goes out to both of you guys, and we'll let Dale start first. Dale, what was your number one memory? First thing that pops into your mind when you think about Clark football coaching?
I think the characters that we had on the team, first of all, I remember standing underneath the goalpost with one of our players, and he looks up and he looks at me and goes, "Coach, isn't that beautiful?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The goalposts, they're just a work of art."
Yeah, and the guy that he's talking to, he went, I want to say 11 straight games, 100 yards rushing. Yeah. Despite being about 142 pounds, which is that was kind of the statement of our team, is that we were not very big, but they had big hearts. And Steve, what about yours? What's your number one memory?
My number one memory is every year how small we were. The number of players that we had, it wasn't quantity, it was definitely quality. And my proudest thing is that a lot of kids that probably played for us would have never even got a chance on another team. Because of their size, and they were outstanding football players.
Yeah, we had a meeting this morning with a gentleman from the YMCA down here in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and that seemed to be the common mention, is that 33 kids, a lot of them very small.
Biggest year.
Yeah, that was our biggest year at 33, and we had one kid, Eric Peanut Peters, that Steve was talking to Stanley about. That's the gentleman from the YMCA, and talk about how he started out. He was probably about 5'2", yeah, maybe when he was a sophomore, and weighed maybe 105 pounds. That's how he got the nickname Peanut. But he was a starter from probably his junior year at least, he filled in as a sophomore, and was on the team that the seniors that probably had the most wins in Clark history in a 3-year period. At least as far as I can remember, they were 21 and I think 9 or something like that, which was pretty amazing.
He made it up in determination.
Yeah,
and he
absolutely.
He built to it.
Yeah. Now, what about responsibilities? What were your responsibilities? Steve, we'll start with you. What exactly were you there doing?
Secondaries, anything to do with corners and safeties, mainly, along with assisting our other coach, Fred Behrens, with the defense scheme, trying to work our secondary scheme in with our linebackers and tackles and so on, but that, and then a little bit on receivers.
Dale?
Mine was special teams, predominantly in backs. I was fortunate to be able to play in a high school scheme that taught me a lot of things about being a good back and learning how to run the ball. But special teams, and one thing good that Gary, you did, is that you didn't take special teams as just an add-on. They were a part of the game. They were planned like the 4 quarters that were offense and defense. And we tried to take our best players, maybe not the most talent, but the best that would give us all the hustle we could. We felt if we could take a hustling student athlete we could make some real headway of keeping the other team's offense deep in the hole. That was the starting point, or we could get ourselves out of the hole. And our kids wanted to play special teams. We did drills to see who was going to make the special teams, and it was always exciting. And like I said, even the heavier linemen, they wanted to be in there to hit somebody.
Yeah, we even, I remember, started giving out special shirts. We had a shirt that had a picture of a football on it, and it said, I'm a special, in real big letters, and then real small letters, team player. So it made it look like it said I'm a special player, but it was because they had made the special teams. Yeah. And for those of you out there that were fortunate enough to see the very first interview with Coach Fred Behrens, you will realize if you listen to him, I wasn't a big defensive special teams guy. I was a pretty offensive special teams guy. I mean, our kids knew that at any time we were not going to punt. We were going to do something different. We liked the onside kick. We liked to kick to 6 different places on the field,
Yes.
depending upon what the defense
Fake
would
punt
do.
inside the 20.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was a very important part of it, and we were very fortunate. You know, I've talked before. The biggest game that I can say that I was ever involved in was the Hammond-Morton 1991 team. But for that full week before practice, I know Steve will remember, we worked after practice on punt returns, setting up the wall for the punt return, and the second touchdown, when they punted the first time, Jay Stoker, one of our backs, took the ball and went like 72 yards for a touchdown to have us go up 14-0 in that downpour.
Well, I think I really believe that they didn't think they'd ever have to punt.
Oh,
They were ranked, what, number 5 in the state?
yeah.
And we weren't ranked in the state. They were across the front line. They were almost 300 pounds. Wow. I think they thought that they would never have to punt in that game. And we proved them a little bit different with a 20-0 win.
Yeah, definitely one that I'll talk about for the rest of my life. There's no doubt about that. Well, let's go into the background just a little bit. I know neither one of you did coaching for your entire livelihood, let's say that. So, you know, give the people out there where you guys have come from. And we'll start with Steve.
Well, originally, my high school sports was track cross country. And one of the reasons is when I went out for freshman football, there were 100 freshmen on our team going out. And since my brother Dale was a star football player when he played, and Gary was a star player when he played, everybody had already picked out where I was going to play. And being young and full of myself, I decided, well, nobody's going to tell me what to do, so I went and started running track and cross country. But my coaching started with you, volunteering with you, because I wanted to be a part of it. I knew how special it was going to be, how long you wanted to be a head coach, and how much you wanted to prove everyone around Hammond and everywhere else what you could do. But my job was, I was a police officer for 31 years. When I started, I was very fortunate to have a mayor that once he found out that I was volunteering to help kids at a school, allowed me to adjust my work schedule around football, which I still worked every day, but after practice or starting early in the morning, I started working. Through that 10-year period, I advanced in law enforcement to a detective, then to a gang officer, and then a detective captain, and then assistant chief of police. And the great thing in my career took off, but when I became assistant chief of police, I could no longer afford the time. Couldn't adjust my schedule like everybody thinks I would have been able to, but I couldn't adjust my schedule to keep coaching. So after 10 years, I had to stop.
I want to add a little bit to that, back to his freshman year. I think Steve probably went into Hammond Tech, which is where Dale and I did. He was probably about 5 foot tall and probably weighed maybe 90 pounds. So it would have been quite an impressive situation. And again, at Tech at that time, you're right. Tech had 2,200 kids in the school at that time, 100 kids out for freshman football. So it was a tough road to hoe. But I think in the long run, the police part of it is what made him the coach that he is today. I think, Dale, you would agree to that.
Oh, most definitely.
You know, I mean, the logic behind it and being able to figure things out, it was pretty amazing that, you know, he was able to think outside the box more than even I because I was kind of brought into coaching through playing, so you get stuck sometimes at what you're trying to think about. He didn't do that, so he would constantly in meetings say, what do you mean we can't do that? Why can't we? Just because somebody else doesn't do that doesn't mean we can't do that. And all of a sudden it was like a big light came on my dumb head and said, yeah, let's let him go with it. Let's see what happens, you know. And it was, you know, again, he was part with Fred, and for 3 years we were the #1 defense in Northwest Indiana. You know, 33 schools, and a small school from Clark set some people on their ear a little bit because they just could not score against us, and that's quite impressive. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he thought outside the box. All right, didn't want to cut Dale off, but Dale, what about your background?
Well, my background is I've always wanted to be a wannabe. You know, I wanted to be a star. I wanted to be a professional football player. I wanted to be a great athlete because educationally I wasn't very smart. I had some difficulties in the classroom, partly because of my fault, partly because of an injury. But athletics and people coaches kept me basically in school, and a dad who said, you're not quitting no matter what. And that determination carried over to all three of us, boys and our sister. Loved athletics. It was a way of me showing people that I could prove myself as an individual. Wasn't real big in high school. As a freshman, I was about 98 pounds and about 5 foot, but got to play several varsity games as a freshman. Did not letter, but did letter in track. Go back a little bit. I remember Steve at my football games running around Hammond High Field for the entire football game, so we knew he was going to be a runner of some sort. Had some great coaches to work under. Didn't get to go on to college, went into the military, became a corpsman in the Navy, which adds to my abilities to be able to coach because I used my medical background to help student athletes overcome injuries or what they thought was an injury, as Gary said earlier. It was a way of giving back. I've always had that little sensitive side to myself. I'm probably more emotional than these two are. They say it's because I wore dresses as a kid. I don't know if that was true or not. But anyway, had the sensitivity to listen and hopefully hear, and always wanted to play football. Just loved football. Even though I was good at track and had an opportunity to go to Valparaiso University to run the mile and half mile, I wanted to play football. Didn't get to, got drafted into Vietnam. Instead of going into the draft, I volunteered to join the Navy, partly because my dad asked me to. He was afraid I'd go to Vietnam. Little did he know when I became a corpsman, that was the first place I was going to go, was Vietnam. But after that, I too, like Steve, I wanted to be in law enforcement. Worked at SS Kresge Kmart stores in security. Tried to get on the police force, wasn't tall enough, and long story short, went on to become a minister of the gospel, Christ for people. And now at 69, I'm still teaching.
And I got on the police department because of you.
Yes.
Contacts that you made and Gary made through other police officers helped me. Once I got out of the Air Force, 4 years in the military police, got me 6 days after I got out, I was on the Hammond Police Department.
Yeah, I said this was rather a unique situation. We are down here because of my mother, but it's also Memorial Day weekend, and we have two people that day was kind of presented for. In Navy with Dale, where he was a corpsman, and Steve was in the Air Force as a police officer. I don't know if that's what they called it. Did they call you a police officer?
Well, security police.
Security police, but it was the same thing that led into it. So first I want to thank them for serving. Never had the opportunity. And
he was smart enough to go to college.
Yeah, he had the brain part of it.
He got all the intelligence.
We got the looks.
Yeah.
Now we're going to take a little break right now, and then we'll be right back. But before we do, I just want you to think about the next question that I'm going to ask. Is, you know, we not only coach together, but my son, both sons, Ryan and Randy, both played for us. And then Ryan actually came back and coached with us. Randy coached the junior high. So, you know, a lot of people talk about the idea that you shouldn't have nepotism in in the workplace. So that's going to be my question next. So think about that for a minute, and we'll be right back with the second part of this interview.